Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to VOUS Basel. So good to see you. I recognize some faces. I think some of you have been in here before. If this is your first time in this space, this is VOUS Basel. It's been put on by VOUS Church. We're a local church here in the city. And our theme for this whole 3-day experience is divine design. And really what we're talking about is that divinity is seen in our creativity. That's where humanity and God really collide as we bring what's inside of us out. And so what we're doing, we have some kind of open gallery time, people coming through. Our hope is that this space would inspire people to let what's inside of them out. But then we're also having ongoing conversations. So we're about to have our 5th conversation here. I was going to call it a session, but it's not a conference. We had 3 combos yesterday that were incredible with some phenomenal guests and friends of our church. And it's just been special. This morning, we were talking about building a brand, and we're about to get into this conversation called Discovering Divine Direction. And so really what we're talking about is creative leadership. And so these 3 days, they have a theme, but we're touching on different facets of that conversation. And I'm excited because today we have some phenomenal panelists that are going to be joining us. This panel is going to be led by the one and only Pastor Rich Wilkerson Jr. Yeah, are you pointing at the stream or? Oh, okay, the Lord. Got it. Pastor Rich is one of the founders. He's lead pastor of VOUS Church, and he's going to be facilitating the conversation. We have 3 incredible guests, 2 of them within our city locals, and then 1 coming in. And so we have Sean Wolfington joining us. Sean Wolfington is a hard man to explain or nail down and define. Technically, I think he's called a technology entrepreneur and a film producer, but really he's founded and led businesses across the automotive, technology, film, real estate industries. He's done a whole lot, and he's going to bring so much to the conversation. We're glad to have you with us, Sean. We also have Chelsea Hirschhorn with us. Chelsea is the CEO of Frida. Frida initially started as Frida Baby. I believe it was a one-product brand, and it's expanded under her leadership to so much more. And they're actually local. Their office is just down the street, and so we're grateful you came over to be with us. We also have Brad Christian with us. Brad Christian is the brand and creative director for Sitka Gear. And Sitka is based in Montana. They make incredible hunting gear and the best camo you've ever seen. So if you don't know what Sitka is, you need to know what Sitka is. You've probably seen it around. I believe Pastor Rich is wearing it right now. And so Brad Christian's going to bring a whole lot. But why don't you give it up for all of our panelists as they make their way to the stage.
Thank you, brother. Amazing. Thank you, Luke Berry. He's doing a wonderful job. He just led our last divine discussion, which was on building a brand, and I thought he did a remarkable job. Hey, thank you guys so much for being here. In fact, why don't you give yourselves a round of applause, because somehow you made it over on a Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. I don't know if that means that you have a flexible work schedule, or maybe you're without a job right now. We pray for you as well. We love you. But either which way, thank you for just taking time to be here. What's cool about all of our divine discussions is that we have an in-room kind of like experience, which is wonderful. We'll talk about the space for those of you that are just joining us. But also we are streaming this content. In fact, we started streaming about 3 weeks ago, just the entire process and build out. We had a 360-degree camera, 24 hours a day, filming the space. But now as we're in session, people are joining us as well. And so can we make some noise for everybody who's joining us online right now? And all of this content will, of course, continue to live on. In this discussion today, I'm really excited because all 3 of these people up here actually are good friends of mine. The thing about Sean Wolfington, probably my dearest friend is for sure in the city of Miami. I love this man. But we've never actually shared a stage together. So this is kind of like a first, which is we made it. Yeah. But I love all 3 of these leaders. And today, we're going to really bring our conversation around this theme of divine direction, which I think is such an important thing to talk about. And we're looking at 3 people that by the world standards are very successful, But me knowing them personally, their success is not just in their numbers, their performance, or the companies that they've grown, but it's really in the lives that they live. And I'm hoping that we can tap into some of their hacks, some of their secrets, some of their principles, and that we too can find the direction for our life. I think as leaders, what I'm learning, the more and more I grow in leadership, one of the things that I find fatigue in, or one of the things I find that's so challenging, is the amount of decisions that I have to make. You make decisions, and then decisions make you. And life really is determined by the decisions we make, because the decisions we make, really they charts our direction, then our direction charts our destiny. And so I want to kick off with kind of a big, broad question, but I think you might all will answer in your own way. And as I was telling you before, this is like conversation style. I might point it towards Sean, and if you disagree, Chelsea, you let him have it, okay?
Oh, I will.
By the way, Chelsea is pregnant, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Am I allowed to share that? I felt like you put it on social, so okay, praise God, all right. But you're speaking for two, so that's all. Let's actually start with Sean if we can. And divine direction, like even just that phrase, what does that mean to you? And maybe all of us be thinking about that a little bit. Like when you hear the term divine direction, for you as a leader, for you in your life, where do you go?
Makes me cry. Because everything beautiful in my life is a result of that. I've had some brilliant ideas but compared to the divine direction, nothing compares to that. That's how I met Anna, and I won the lottery, the mother of my 4 children. So for me, divine direction is like a navigation system in my soul. And I was driving here around Miami specifically to be here, and I missed the turn because I don't even know what street we're on. And I was late, to keep it real, and I had a little angst. I'm like, why didn't I use my navigation? That's like me leaving without having my still time in the morning, where I can just be still. I can hear that fan. I can hear the but I can also hear the whisper to my soul. It tells me to turn left or turn right, to stop, pull back, go to Rich's house. And so it's the navigation system to my soul. And I found that the more I listen to it, the ears of my soul grow larger. And then there's times when maybe I run ahead of God's speed because I have a better plan. And then the ears of my soul shrink. So I got to reboot, bring it back into the service department. And so divine direction has been the architect of everything incredible in my life. And people ask me like, oh, how did you have all these successes? And, first of all, my type of girl that I thought was blonde hair, blue eyed. And I met her an hour before and she was vegetarian. I was vegetarian. I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, this is it. This is it. But then a whisper came like the wind. Just like time to go. No audible, just like an impression on my soul. Atheists will call it gut. Hindus and Buddhists will call it intuition. Christians will call it the Holy Spirit. I just knew I had to go. And so thank God I said no to my plan. And I just collapsed in the river, and the current took me about a mile away, and 2 hours later, that same whisper said, walk up to that brown-haired, brown-eyed girl. My first business, I told my wife, I said, honey, I could write a business plan on why this is the worst time to do this. The demand has gone down, the supply is up. I could write a business plan on why not to do it. She's like, why are you doing it? Divine design. And I didn't say divine design, but she knows I call myself a river baby. That's a new one from yesterday, because someone's like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a river baby. And what I mean by that is like, when I'm at my best, I just am like a little baby like this, and I just collapse into the current, and the current just takes me. And sometimes I'm headed towards a rock. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a rock. And then I remember just to surrender to that current, and it takes me right around the rock. And all of a sudden, there's a waterfall. I'm going to go down 6 feet, and I go down the waterfall. I'm 6 feet below the water. But then I remember, it's okay. I'm in the current. It's going to work out. And then, flying out like a dolphin. I just went from a river baby to a dolphin, but then I become a baby again. So that's my answer.
If you don't like analogies, you're not going to like Sean Wolfington because he is the king of metaphor. I think we ought to give him a round of applause. One theologian said, without metaphor, we can't describe God because with human language, he's too big, he's too vast. And Sean always speaks in that format. Not all of us are going to speak out of the river today, but I love it, Sean. It's beautiful. Maybe Brad, just weigh into it, and you don't have to be a dolphin to have an answer. And
yeah, I'm gonna only see you for the rest of my life with little baby arms, a little pterodactyl. So good. For me, I think about divine design. I think ultimately about nature and creation. As a creative director and designer, and you're constantly looking for influence, right? We can all be in this beautiful space. I think for a lot of us, Virgil was that. He was, absolutely for me. But ultimately, the greatest source of inspiration for me is through the time that I spend in nature. When I went through a super difficult, I'll start getting choked up, you started it, but period of my life, and just so totally broken. And I started spending more and more time in nature. And I was sitting by this creek and just wrecked. Every insecurity that I never knew that I had came to the surface. And but I felt yet so at peace and so alive. And I just, was like, God, why do I feel like, I was broken, but I wanted to scream because I was so excited. Like, I just felt so fulfilled. And I started thinking about, because humans have a tendency to over-design. You take a child and you give them a packet of stickers, and they will literally take that entire pack and every single one of them will be on the water, and they're like done on a white page, and you're like, oh yeah, you like every single sticker, no white space left. And we have a tendency to do that. And I started thinking, I'm like, man, you rewind back far enough, and in the beginning, there's this wild landscape, okay, this wild sense of place. There's wild animals, birds and deer and frogs and minnows and this whole ecosystem. And then there's wild me. There's a wild human sitting there. And I was like, the band is back together. Like, here we are. Like, it's so simple. And this feels all right and all good because everything has been removed. And so for me, divine design is just looking to that greatest source of influence, whether you're designing a pant or a snot sucker, or, whatever the things are in your life. If you're solving leadership problems, just looking to the ultimate creator for that inspiration.
I love that. I'm not going to cry. I wish I could cry like that.
We got you covered.
I didn't even cry on our wedding day, much to Eric's chagrin. But, I think about divine direction in my life, but first, my first form of direction in very formative years was really shaped by looking out and looking around me. And whether that was, in high school or college or my early professional years or even my early years as a parent, I took a lot from the world around me. And I think the divinity came particularly over the last, 8 years that I've been, pursuing this profession, when I had the courage to take direction internally. And that was really new for me. I was really inspired and taking things from the outside of what my assumption or interpretation of what direction I was supposed to be on by what surrounded me. And it took a tremendous amount of courage for me to find that intuition or that sort of divine intention internally. And that was a big departure from everything that I had ever thought I was meant to do in my life, as a sibling, as a daughter, as a professional, as a friend. And so that was a big leap for me. And there's so many examples of how that has come to life, over the last 8 years for me. I can share a few. We built this business, and these are really tactical examples, and I have really, big, lofty examples. But we built our business, which is a baby and feminine care consumer products business, in a time when the trendy, prevailing philosophy was to build a big direct-to-consumer business. And there was a conviction that we had that was not the way that parents needed to get these products. And so building a business and investing in the way that we did, in a way that sort of bucked that prevailing philosophy, was a huge risk, and not a risk that a lot of people were willing to subscribe to. And ultimately, it materialized in our favor as you think about, the way that the world has changed over the last 10 years. But that's just a small example. I think, that translates in so many ways to the things that we've invented, the way that we've engineered solutions for the first time, and finding that direction from intuition. And we encourage the team to do the same, is to not look out and to look in and have the courage to do that, and put sort of blinders on, and, leaving a career in the law, which was, from the beginning what I was meant to do, so to speak, and not feeling like I had to go down one path because that's what I saw on the outside, but this was what I felt like was meant for me.
It's beautiful. Come on, can we thank them as your great answers? I love what we're saying. By the way, I just have to make a comment because I just love the diversity of this panel right now. We have Frida, which does baby and mom products, and then we've got Sitka, which is high quality hunting gear. I don't know, but I appreciate those that put this panel together. One of the areas that I would love to lean into, because I just think it was Charles Spurgeon, I've quoted this so many times, who said, he's a preacher, who said, truth is in the tension. And I think sometimes when it comes to all this creative spaces, and you look around here, it's like, oh, bro, these are just creatives, these are just designers. But the more and more I go on the journey of creativity, there is all this functionality, there's all this organizational health and organizational management. I love what Brad's doing, because right now I'm wearing these really cool, these are hunting pants. They're I guess I found out they're really high quality hunting pants. But what's been really fun about the Sitka story, I don't know, because I don't do that, but is Kanye's wearing these, and Daniel Arsham's doing a big thing. It's there's this really beautiful space where street art always is, taking something into a brand new application. And so much of who Brad is the creative, and so much Chelsea, I think, I love everything her and her husband do. I feel they're some of the finest creatives I know, from the way they do their house to their office space. It's beautiful. It's excellent. Sean Wolfington is one of the people in my life who has challenged me with the idea of excellence as a spirit. Whatever we do, we're going to do everything to the best of our ability. But I want to talk about the tension, if we can, for a little bit, because you guys are all leading staffs and teams, and Frida's story, just the growth of that, and hundreds of people under your leadership. What is that tension of creativity, and then also organizationally managing? Can we just open up discussion a little bit? How do you manage that tension? Because I want some people to hear that, because there's somebody here today who's I do Photoshop and that's all I do. It's well, if you want to go further, you might need to think beyond it. So maybe Brad, kick off.
Yeah, the tension's real. I think because, as a creative, my heart is to make beautiful things. I want to be alone and make something for myself, and leave me alone. I don't want your input. I know what, makes me, feel the way I want to feel, and that's it. But then you've got to pay your mortgage, right? And so that happens. And so, if you want to just be 100%, pure and do whatever the heck you want, you can go stand on the corner and play guitar or what, and not try to, attempt to monetize it. But the struggle, what I'm getting to, is the commercialization of creative ideas, right? And if we rewind back again, at some point, God decided that we'd have to work, for a living. And so it's that tension is really real, because you gotta you got to sell stuff. You have to think about, the masses, but yet everything in you is like, I don't care about the masses. I want to play to the, to the innovators, not that center of that, bell curve. And Crossing the Chasm, a great business book. If you haven't read it, to go read. And so understanding though that the commercialization is like, it's like eating your vegetables. That has to happen in order to have the ability to go create that art. And in a perfect world where it really works and it's so beautiful is when you can make something that is art that does reach the masses. Virgil is probably one of the best examples of that, which is so totally cool because so many ideas I have are like insane, but in my market, people will be like, you're freaking crazy, and so it's quite a beautiful thing. But that tension is really challenging. I struggled with it, and ultimately, I think it comes with maturity and just going, okay, I know that I need to do this, right? Like talking to your kids, you got to eat the vegetables too, not just like steak and ice cream. So thinking through that and just kind of putting your big boy pants on and is real.
Sean.
Well, there's a few points of tension if that's the focus. And I think one of the challenges for people that have clear vision, they can see it like it already exists. And then they have to be able to communicate that to other people. But then they also have to create space on that canvas for other people to paint as well. And I would say when I was younger, I would, I just saw the canvas. I'm like, let's go. That's what we're doing. And I realized that, that's my speed, not God's speed. And I think I just have to do my part and then allow people to do their part and trust the current, since we're on the river thing and he's from Montana, so we may as well take it to the whole. No, but the current will bring others. Yeah. And I'll give you an example. When you called me Sunday morning, I knew I had to get flowers. And, I knew that before, as you know, but I was at the flower store and Tony, the truck man, is Tony here, by the way? Tony ends up meeting me there. She takes the flowers here. And I'm en route. I'm like, all right, I got to get there to make sure they're arranged properly. Because I handpicked flowers because I already knew in my mind's eye exactly how they were going to be. And I was telling Tony, hey, just have him get a head start, do this and do that. And then all of a sudden I hit Swan. And I just get this little whisper like, it's not for you. And I went and got something to eat. Now, sometimes that's a debate, like, hey, is this really, like, but I just the current just took me in. I got this incredible, like, they have this Eggs Benedict thing that's insane, by the way. And I met the DJ who's going to be with us Saturday night, really beautiful guy. But then I came by here and I forgot about it. And I was walking by to go somewhere else and I see like 8 people. It was an orchestra. And I looked at it and I cried. And I cried not just because it was so beautiful that all these people were working so fluidly together and the outcome was extraordinary, but also I cried because I was like, my gosh, whatever you want to call that whisper is always right. Because that was so much better than what I had envisioned. So I think for me, the friction is reduced as I've become more humble and recognize it.
Amen.
First of all, to not take credit for even the intellect I do have and the vision I do have, because I could be in the corner drooling, but for the grace of God. And to be humble with it, to be an open vessel, but to be delicate. And even if I see it all, to check in and be like, am I supposed to do it all? And let other people paint on that brush. And last night, I was walking, speaking of flowers, I had left a few flowers in the trunk. And I'm like, oh man, I left the flowers in the trunk. So I run out and I couldn't carry them all. So I just knew in my soul that somebody was going to be around and they were going to help me. And then I see this dude. His name's Kevin. He's walking over. He is the janitorial supervisor for the city. And I'm like, hey, can I ask you a favor? Could you help me with these flowers? And we're walking. And I would just move to ask him a question. I said, hey, what's one thing that you figured out, because you supervise people, that is really important, that's the most important of all the years you've been doing it? And he sat and he chewed on it. And I had this thought. I thought, you know what? I feel bad. Maybe I put him in a bad position. Maybe he's not that sharp. Like maybe he's nervous. And all of a sudden, he very slowly says, patience. I said, patience. But the way he said it, like the most interesting man in the world, like the way he said it, I knew wisdom was on the other side of that. And he said, people are different. God makes people very different. Instead of looking at their weaknesses, I try to find their strengths. And in the valley of trying to figure out their strengths, I'm patient. And it's like, and it's amazing what happens when you're patient with people. Because everybody's going through different stuff and you never know what they're going through. And when a storm passes, all of a sudden there's clear water. They see clearly, you see clearly. And then I was like, we were at the front of the booth. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going up yet. Give me another one. He's like, communication. And this guy was smooth, by the way. And, his teeth were different, but dude was smooth. And I'm like, what do you mean by communication? He's like, you just got to patiently communicate. But that starts with listening. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I asked my wife last night, I said, honey, what do you think I need the most help with as a leader? And she's like, well, honey, you kind of should be nice. Sometimes you get there early and you get a little impatient. And I'm just, again, thinking like, how beautiful is it that same whisper that had me eating that Eggs Benedict at Swan is the same whisper that hooked me up with Kevin, who I love and adore. He's actually with us Saturday night. It's going down with Kevin. So I think that really all roads lead to collapsing in the river of God's love and just following that current.
I think it's beautiful, honestly. And I always, always, always enjoy your ability to see God's hand in everything. Because I think if I'm learning something from you, it's the ability to look at the creator, the divine designer at work. On this tension thread, Chelsea, just let's maybe like zero in a little bit, because I find for me as a leader, I've got these big ideas. I've got a lot of vision. In fact, what I like the most is this kind of stuff. I want to sit in a room all day and splatter paint stuff with my friend Tiago. I'm like, let's make another hoodie. But like, that's not actually what a church is, Like, we actually have all this other work. I'm going to work on a sermon. It's like, there's other things. And so, like, you start with, it's not called a snot sucker, is it? But I'm just saying, it starts with an idea of a product. But now it's like you've got people and like, I know that you and Eric are both such great marketers and storytellers. Like, how do you stay true to like still being the creative, but like being the manager and being the leader and being the and the buck stops here and look at the spreadsheets and the balance sheets. Okay, Rich, are you getting in therapy right now? What's going on? Sorry, okay.
Oh, I love you. Last time we shared a stage together, he let me suck his snot.
Yes, okay? I thought that was a memorable moment.
So I'm just saying, there's a video that's somewhere.
Yeah.
My understanding of creativity has evolved considerably over the years. I always defined myself as creative, but I think throughout the journey of creating this business, I've really understood what the power of creativity can be, and the way that we look at creativity and the people who embrace that characteristic best are not only the splatter painters or the photoshoppers. They're the people who understand that their creativity is a tool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a means to an end. And I think Brad sort of articulated what we say often, which is, the most amazing, divine, creative work happens where creativity is at the intersection of something else, whether it's commerce, whether it's family, whether it's entertaining, whether it's inventing, whether it's engineering, whether it's problem solving. It doesn't matter if you're in an Excel spreadsheet or if you are designing packaging or if you're entertaining for the holidays. I think that the most valuable characteristic that we look for at Frida and in friendships and in relationships is an ability to create as a tool and not necessarily as an end in and of itself.
Beautiful. I've said for many years now to our team and to our staff is that the greatest thing you bring to this organization is your creativity. Because for me, creativity has always been just problem solving. Like we've got problems, they need to be solved, and it's going to take a creative mind. And maybe you do that through Excel, or maybe you do that through Photoshop. Maybe you do that through design, or maybe you do that through a balance sheet. We're here to solve problems, and we're here to bring the best of yourself. As leaders, as we're growing, I'm leading more and more people today than I was last year. What are some things that, like, as a leader, how do you get the creativity out of the people around you? Like, you're directing, you're leading this organization, this family, this brand, this space. Like, we need people to collaborate with, and we need the best out of them. What are some principles or some things for you that has worked well?
Sure. I think that a lot of my understanding of how to build a team and a team of creatives, and not just Photoshoppers, right, but creative problem solvers, comes from abandoning this assumption that great minds think alike. I think that is like first and foremost, a big leadership and directional change in shift in mindset. Great minds don't think alike. Great minds expose you to different views and different perspectives. And I think, like what Sean said, is you find people who share values, and you find people who share a common purpose and an appreciation for a mission or a journey that you're on. And then you let their views and their thought processes take them on that blank canvas wherever that purpose is meant to go.
Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. Want me to go? Keep it in line. As a creative, it could be really easy to have, and there's a time and a place for this, to have the creative lead the strategy. You're like, oh, I want to, I envision this, a little baby floating down a river, or a red hot air balloon, or something, and design a show or a thing around just some idea that was in your mind, and that's totally fine, and it's such a beautiful thing to do that. But often, you need to design a strategy and let the creative serve that strategy. And so, when you're building a team, I think one of the most important things is help them understand that strategy, because then when you're coming, you can let go and know that they're focused on using their gifts that God gave them to serve that strategy, not like, oh, I'm really into this right now because I was influenced by, punk rock, or something. You're like, whoa, what? Why are we looking like, that right now, right? So really just helping them understand that.
Were you a punk rock fan?
I'm a fan of all the things, all the music. Kurt Cobain, grunge.
That's alternative. I went through a massive punk phase.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you have pictures? I bet
MXPX,
somewhere. I'll text your mom, get
Rancid.
some photos.
It was a whole situation.
Yeah, it's good though.
Sorry,
good
you said punk rock, and it brought me back to my childhood.
Yeah. No, so just helping them understand that strategy, and then it's always a shared conversation, right? It's the same thing. Like I'll not to get off on a tangent, but like my marriage, I'm not believing in my marriage because I think I'm the nicest person, or we're always going to feel this amazing love, or most importantly, I know that we're surrendered to this thing, and that this is going to, like, no matter what, I promise that I'm going to change my behavior if it's not in alignment with that, right? And so it's like, in the same way, if everybody knows where they're going, you're off to the races.
It's great.
Yeah, and I love the busy isn't working, because a lot of times people get busy doing things that don't work. And even like looking busy, being proud about how busy they are. I got to bed late. I would get up early. I barely sleep. I'm Red Bull's poster boy. But the truth is, I think, the river baby realizes you need your sleep. You know the baby business. You need your sleep. So I'd say number one is try to encourage people, like Madison's here somewhere. But I haven't asked her recently, but I'm going to have to ask her this week. Like 1 to 10, how are you in your rest? Because the unrested baby, for any of you guys have babies, what happens to an unrested baby? Can I hear what happens to an unrested baby? Let me hear it. And they get sick. So create an environment where people understand truths. And one truth is we need to rest. And the only reason I didn't rest a lot of times is because I was trusting myself more than the current. Oh, I'm going to get it done. And then the second, so I think that removes friction, and it creates an environment where people can actually be more calm and clear and efficient. The other thing I was going to say is that in our business, I never wanted to make money. I'm a river baby. A lot of things that I've been brought to, I didn't even want to do. It wasn't my idea. So I think there's something to be said for divorcing yourself from the outcome and being focused solely on the mission, not the money. And I found some of the most extraordinary creators who've not only created products and companies, but cultures and impact is because they were addicted to a mission that they knew they were created for, the shoes that only they could fill. And then all the other river babies that are supposed to be on that little, Colorado, what do you call that? The rapid ride? They come because they know that mission's for them as well. So it starts with a mission-driven leader who's on fire for a mission. And then you hear fire trucks coming from all over the city. And they're like, yo, I know I'm supposed to be a part of that too. Like, I knew I was supposed to be a part of this. I'm coming here at 1 a.m. I see Tiago. He's all the way up here. This guy knew he stepped everything for weeks. And so, a mission worth fighting and dying for. But then create a culture that isn't afraid. Because sometimes when it's so focused on money and a particular outcome and KPI, because that's what all the business schools are going to teach you, it creates a culture of fear. It's like, what if I don't get that number? Am I not going to be? I went to this thing. They said, you're a divine design. Well, it's not my boss's eyes because I didn't hit the number. Am I going to get fired? So that creates an environment of fear. And that sucks creativity and it sucks culture. It sucks the life out of a space. And that creates an energy of fighting. I'm going with some Fs because he's very good with phonetics. So I'm going to try to do like the F thing.
Big alliteration guy.
Be careful with all the F things, though.
You're right. But fear creates fighting. Because all of a sudden I'm afraid that this is going to happen. So I got to fight you. We got to do it this way because otherwise I'm going to get fired. So I think it's important to create an environment that's free and that flows.
Yeah.
And so the only way to get free and to flow is to let go sometimes of the plan, to let go of the end destination and just enjoy the ride. You know what I mean?
We should have put Sean Wolfington into our writers session yesterday. I want to see a rap battle between him and Andy Mineo. Funny story last night. Sean will disagree, but we were in here. This place was packed. We had Camilo and Evaluna here, and we were in a beautiful discussion. It was just like so wonderful. And Sean was sitting like way back here, and I could kind of see him in my peripheral. And somehow, I don't know where this came from, but Camilo all of a sudden mentions Sean's name. He's like, one time Sean Wolfington and I looked over, I could see Sean, he kind of perks up, and Sean's like, did you say my name, Camilo?
Are you going to sing me a song?
Yeah, exactly.
I thought he was going to serenade me. Man.
It's always a fascinating moment when you're just in a discussion and all of a sudden your name's mentioned. You're like, what are they saying about me?
I didn't do it.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful.
Can I touch on the fear thing real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, two things. One is first, focusing, because it's easy as a leader to think just about your team, but I think you got to focus on your own fears first. Because I know when I'm scared, I'm going, this can't get screwed up. I got my name on it. It's got and then you're just a poor leader, so it's like game over. But then with the team, I think just being intentional and just speaking that, because any environment, like everybody's got a boss, whether it's your consumers or, an actual person, right? Because somebody, has a credit card and votes whether or not your stuff's successful, but is to be intentional and communicate that. Like I'll say to our team, you have the freedom to fail.
We call that a free to fail.
There you go.
Wow, the alliteration.
F, I'm telling you, man.
I want to get a producer up here.
But yeah, just being intentional about that. And it's not like, because you tried something stupid. It's like you're serving the strategy. When everybody's looking to that, then you got the freedom to make mistakes. And that's where you're going to learn from, because we all make them.
And failure spelled Learning. That's what it's spelled.
Yeah.
Which is
Amen.
Learning, if you couldn't spell that. It was a long word. I was like, where's he going with this one? Yeah. I was like, did he just spell losing? I was like, no, you're,
Comma.
right. It's, sorry. I think what you're speaking to, though, is so very, very important, because the hardest person to lead is always yourself. And whatever you're full of is what you will be led by. So if you're full of fear, you're going to be led by fear. If you're full of depression, led by it. If you're full of worry. And so we as leaders, the people that we're leading around, it's like it always begins with us and it always starts with us. And we're talking about direction, and we're talking about getting direction, gaining direction. And a lot of things I'm hearing I think are things that we can't talk about enough. You need to have a vision of where you're headed. We mentioned that. You need to get the right team around you to solve problems. I think is it Good to Great? Is that Jim Collins? He said, the right vision with the wrong people is irrelevant. When I think about the VOUS story, it's like, dude, there's just too many people to mention like how we've been able to see this church do what it's done in this type of city. It's not because of DC and I, it's because of the right people around a mission worth dying for is the way that we want to live our life. What I want to try to lean into, if we can, maybe even kind of try to go even personal stories as much as you're willing to be vulnerable. What happens is we have vision and we even start to get direction, but what nobody realizes, just because you have a worthy vision and a worthy mission and the right team and direction, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have obstacles. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have like walls, mountains that are in front of you. I always call it like, I think frustration is an indication that you're living with expectation. Like everyone, like I think we can either curse our frustration or we can say like, oh, actually I'm frustrated because I believe in a better tomorrow. Or I believe in a better world. I want to maybe try to go about this question a little bit different right now, because I think this is helpful for people and you don't have to go totally honest. But like when I say frustration, what is your biggest frustration right now with what it is you're trying to accomplish? Like, can you speak to that? Like, I mean, like, here's, I got free today. Like, what is the thing that's like what's the problem right now today that if it's not too confidential like that, because I think they see it's like, oh, it's just momentum. It's like, you don't understand. Like I'm dealing with a problem right now. My creativity is what God's given me to solve it. What today is like the thing that you woke up on Thursday?
I have like 5. Where should I start?
Whatever you think is helpful for I just want people to hear a little bit about that.
We've been a part, are we talking about professional, personal?
You can go whatever one you want to go into.
We'll start with professional.
I don't want you to start completely like,
embarrassing myself in front of the
or
people,
hurting your husband. I don't know where you're going to go with this, I'm going to talk, Eric's got some problems, I don't know. Like
I'm at it.
Yeah.
All right. No. We've been apart for almost 2 years. And that has been the greatest struggle of my professional journey to date as a leader. I am a people person at my core. I like going to someone's shoulder and desk and collaborating. And the last 18 months of my life have been incredibly challenging. And so thinking about and working with our team to bring 100 and some odd people back into a world of collaboration and creativity in person amidst all of the fears that might entail and the challenges from a health and safety perspective, from a friction in personal and professional lives converging at home and then separating again back in an office and finding the right balance to reintegrate those two. That is a challenge that I'm living and breathing every day right now. And my team is working night and day to figure out how a people-led organization can re-people again in person. And not over a computer screen. We make things that you touch and feel and use, and we're not a tech business. And I think there are some industries where working remotely or far from other people is much more conducive to your business's mission or purpose than ours is. And so that's been a really big challenge. But there have been so many challenges that we've faced of the moment. Bringing talent to Miami, right? Like Miami is not a huge market from an industry perspective. It's evolved over the last 10 years, but broadening our perspective on how we can attract and retain the best talent to our team. Breaking down creative barriers for our, in the name of our mission and purpose of preparing women for what they're going to go through during their parenting journey has been a huge challenge for us recently. A lot of our content is on the more graphic side. It's not the glossy Instagram-worthy moments of parenthood. And so figuring out a way to accomplish that goal, whether it's on TV or on social media, or finding the broadest audience to share our message with, not necessarily being graphic for graphic's sake, but with a purpose in mind. There are a lot of barriers that we're trying to break down right now.
It's very, very helpful. Brad, Sean?
Man, trying to give a little bit of context without being long-winded to it, but to be specific, I mean, you said, when I wake up this week, like what's on my mind, and it's when you think about when the world thinks today about hunting, historically, it's not too far back. I'm saying the last several years prior to 2020, actually, it has this negative connotation when a hunter is portrayed in a movie or something, right? They're got this orange suit on. They're this kind of Bubba character, right? That's sort of happened, and so when I think about hunting, I don't think of it as this. I'm going to go off, to take this animal's life and come home back to my busy life and as the sport. I look at hunting as being. Eating is the most fundamental thing, right? Like eating, drinking water, and like not dying from the weather are the most like basic things that a human needs. And so if you have a garden, it's like totally chill. If you have like chickens, it's like, oh, are they free range? It's like, as you move up, toward hunting, it's like, oh, but yet, like you're like eating a steak while like, in your mind or whatever. And so I'm thinking about hunting as this way of living in connection with the ecosystem. Like we are part of it, right? Go back to that original analogy of, you're alone in creation before all of this, was here. And so if that's the case, then what else, around hunting in terms of the lifestyle, in terms of, I was having a conversation with Andy, the other night. I don't know, what's Andy's last name? Rapper Andy?
Minyo.
Yeah. And I was like, tell him, my kids and I and my wife, we spent 46 nights living on public land during isolation, totally remote. And it was the most beautiful experience. And while we were out there, we were recording nature sounds and like building drum beats and stuff out of like nature sounds. And I'm like, I mean, is that hunting? Is that, it's coming out of this lifestyle that we live. But what else could this mean? And in the hunting market, people would be like, "You're freaking crazy!" Like just true endemic fastball down the middle hunters would think that some of these ideas are completely crazy. The mainstream would get it, but it's not commercial. And so I'm just like, man, how do we start to communicate the values of hunting and being in connection with the ecosystem? How do we stretch that rubber band without breaking it, right? Without losing and your core audience going, you guys have lost your mind, you're selling out or something like that. And also communicating to a new audience that I think is curious to learn more, right? More and more people do have chickens, are gardening, are interested in like, hey, I'm like questioning the meat that, our family eats. And like, man, I want to engage in that conversation. And what does that look like? And how do we, make products that don't, offend somebody too much to the point that, you lose something that you've built?
So for me, a long time ago, I decided, knowing that expectations are the mother of disappointment, I felt like, well, let me go to the cause and just consciously decide I want to remove expectations. And obviously I have a vision. Obviously we have a vision, we have goals, we have strategy, we have tactics. But if you reverse engineer for me, every time I did lose my patience or got frustrated, it's because I was too attached to this expectation. And when I'm so attached to my plan, I'm not leaving room for God's plan. And then in the middle of it, sometimes I'm like, wait a minute, why am I fighting against the stream? I think I'm Hercules, I'm no longer river baby. I'm like, I'm river idiot. Because I think what they tell you when there's a riptide that pulls you out to the ocean, the last thing you do is fight it. It'll exhaust you and then you drown. And I think that's true with this as well. And so my short answer is, at my best as a river baby, I just don't want to expect anything, expect less and appreciate more. And it's funny, the way I'm built is sometimes I'll expect more from others, maybe appreciate myself more, and I want to flip it. I want to appreciate them more and their gifts more and try to bring them out of them and expect more from me. And so part of that expectation is trusting and letting go, letting God run the show. That was a little rhyme, man. I'll go head to head. I don't know where he is. I'll go head to head. That was a bird call.
Shots fired.
Montana, back me up. But I will say, I was sitting here as a result. There aren't any remunerating frustrations for me, but there's one that just rose up in me that is so frustrating and makes me very angry. Very angry. furious. And it said, have I ever seen one of God's children think that they are not what that mirror says? That you are a divine design. If I see one girl who thinks that she's not a divine design, it pisses me off. It pisses me off. Because I know the voice of lies had got her in a headlock. And I wish I could go head to head right there, rip that voice of lies out. Like, I used to watch WWF. And there's this guy, what's his name? Andre the Giant. And I remember Rowdy Roddy Piper was wrestling with this person that was a smaller person. I forget, I don't know the politically correct term. But you got Rowdy Roddy Giant just smacking the heck out of this small guy. And he's like, I'm going to get this alone. And I never like when people bully people. So I wish I could just go in that ring and help that little dude. And Rowdy Roddy Piper's like getting up. He's like, ha, 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 I'm getting this guy. And then all of a sudden he reaches out to Andre the Giant. And Andre the Giant comes up and he literally lifts the dude and he goes, whew. And that's what I want to do. To every lie that enters a woman's mind that tells her that she's not made in the likeness and image of God himself. And she's not perfect just the way she is. And I was so grateful when I walked in here and I saw that mirror. Because I know and I see it all the time. I saw it the other day walking the design district. Someone I met that is getting attacked with these lies that contradict what that says. You are a divine design. And so all I want to say is don't buy the lie. Don't buy the lie. It's a freaking lie. And I just wish I had some type of software that could go into the mind and monitor every thought and just flag the lies. Flag them. You know, the anti-spam software?
Yes.
Like they do that. They're like, nope, not today. Not today. Because this is a human computer and little unwelcome banner ads are coming up every second, lying to us every day. And we have a choice whether we click on it or not. And so to me, the reason I sit still in the morning is so I can just observe those thoughts. They fly by like a plane on the beach, advertisings, dollar beers at Joe's Pub and Grub. Yeah. Which, some of the guys in Montana, they're all over that.
Oh, yeah.
So, but
It's a lifestyle.
that's just a thought. That's just a thought. That's not me. It's not true. And I just hope and pray the thing that bothers me and frustrates me is that people buy the lie. And I wish they didn't, because then they'd listen to another voice, a voice of truth, that would remind them how extraordinary they are and not get them focused on what they don't have, whether that be that big booty or the big boobs. I'm just throwing it out there because we're in Miami. We are in Miami. And that they would be committed to just let their light shine. Yeah. And your light's different from my light. That's another thing this dude said. Kevin was so wise. He said, people are like your body. He's like, your eyes are great and they can see, but they'd be nothing without the head. I'm like, yeah, Kevin. Yeah. And he's like, and your head wouldn't even know what to do with itself if it didn't have a shoulder. So everybody counts and everybody matters and they all play their role. So you got to, and leadership is just creating the environment to be the conductor so that even broken instruments can make beautiful music.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my answer.
Sean, I think Sean might be my spirit animal. You're freaking amazing, dude. I was just thinking as he was talking, one, I just so appreciate the vulnerability. Emotion can be embarrassing, can be weird. You kind of look at, well, what did I say last night or what did I? And so I just love you for being 100%, and I was also just, when you were talking, I was just like, Lord, give me that passion, give me that fire for injustice, for things I believe, and that's all just to be even personal. That is in me 100%, and over the last several years, I think through whether it be disappointment or whatever the struggles are, I've lost some of that just for me it was like sex trafficking. I was like, I'm going to make a document, put everything that God has given me to make a beautiful image as a photographer and filmmaker, and I'm going to go bring that to this problem and just, I mean, I wanted to just take on the world, and I was like, man, where is that? And I'm missing that right now in real time. I'm passionate about things that I'm creating because they're cool, but I want them to have more redeeming value than aesthetic.
So hey, so this is the beauty of the divine design. Is that it's obvious to me that the deeper part of you, that sex trafficking frustrates you. And I think someone said a holy discontent. I call it a holy rage. Well, we're making a movie called Sound of Freedom. And you're going to be involved because that's just how divine design works. And it happens to be a film. It's not a doc, it's a major motion picture with Jim Caviezel as the lead, playing Tim Ballard. And you're going to get involved. By the way, I already know. I mean, is this an accident, bro? I mean, come on. So Tim Ballard, talk about divine design. He works for the CIA. He leaves Homeland Security because he rescues a little boy in Southern California, who then he discovers has a sister who was sold. 9-year-old girl sold to a commander in the FARC army in the war-torn jungles of Colombia. He gets permission from Homeland Security to go there. When he finally finds her 2 weeks later, a week past the time he was supposed to come back, the government's like, that's not our jurisdiction. Colombian army doesn't even go there. You got to come home. And something was rising up in him that he knew this was his purpose. Beyond logic, because what is he going to pull a Rambo in the Colombian government? He's not even allowed. As a U.S. official, he's not even allowed. And then he calls his wife and talk about the intuition of a wife and a woman. Oh my gosh. So before he even says a word, she's like, I just want to let you know, you need to go. You need to go save that little girl. And of course, all of his thoughts landed with, oh, even if this is what I'm supposed to do, how could that be so irresponsible? I have 5 children. I have a wife. And once she said that, with 8 months left, he quits his job and he joined his mission. And I'm not going to tell you what happened when he went into that jungle alone, but I will tell you that thousands of children have been saved. And with this film, I already know millions are going to be rescued, and the networks that support are going to be dismantled, and you're going to get involved, and we're going to find a way to tie it right into your brand so that when people are, making a purchase, they're also making a difference. We'll figure it out. But there's nothing better than saving a child's life. Like, what matters more than that? And actually, to the extent that anybody wants to collaborate in this effort, it's called the Sound of Freedom. And the reason it is, because after a rescue mission that was related to this, because when you went into Colombia, they actually had to find this girl, and they ended up rescuing 125 kids en route to her. One of the agents said, what is that noise? What's that noise? And they heard in the distance, and the other agent who had just come from there said, that's the sound of freedom. Because the kids just spontaneously, when they were freed, burst out in song, just spontaneously. And so iHeart has actually said that they want to do a concert called The Sound of Freedom with a multi-artist concert. Alejandro Sanz says he wants to do it. He told me Juana said he wanted to do it. The truth is, who knows? I know Doe is going to be a part of it. I'll tell you that right now. No question about that. So anyway, just a thought.
I thought you were going to make it even crazier full circle and say that Tim Ballard was in Miami and that Tim Ballard.
Well, Tim Ballard is in Miami, but I don't think Tim's here, is he?
I thought you were going to tell me that
Tim was here last night.
I thought you were going to tell me that Tim Ballard was here last night.
Oh, he was, yeah. So Tim is the actual person
which I think is
pretty wild.
I think you need to close the gap there.
I didn't. And so Tim, funny enough, was here standing right there, loved it, and loved everything that was happening here. And, what's better than, people call him like a real world Rambo. But, Rambo was a little, I don't know, Tim's just a beautiful, humble, kind, loving, inclusive soul, just like Virgil. And just like Virgil, this wasn't his plan. His plan was to be in the CIA and retire with his pension. But just like Virgil, he's got that flow to surrender, recognizing that, he can do more with less effort, by just collapsing into the current.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. One of my life principles as we close has always been don't force, flow. And what that means is getting into the current of God's love and being led by the Spirit. I think the best things in my life have come not from forcing it, but flowing in it. And of course, if you're just new to any of our divine discussions, this space, divine design, was Virgil Abloh's idea through a conversation that he and I had back in July. And this was something he was really looking forward to. We were supposed to be on the stage tomorrow night together talking about faith and art. And all of these conversations that are happening really come from his vision. And it's really beautiful, even as he's gone to be in heaven right now, that his vision is unfolding here on the earth. And I just think in closing remarks right now, I'm going to pray here in a moment, but just maybe each of you talking about closing the gap here, divine direction. We talked about the frustration and the obstacle. What has been your best practice? What is the helpful thing for you when you're up against that wall, when you're facing the mountain, you don't know how to get through it? What's the thing that you do for your soul, for your spirit, for your mind, for your emotion, to not quit, but to continue to discover the answer, the solution, and to go? I think you were mentioning stillness, and maybe that's your answer, but maybe we'll start with Chelsea, and we'll close with Sean, and then I'll pray.
Mine may be the exact opposite. I need to surround myself with people. That is like totally my source of energy and inspiration and recovery, and I sort of thrive in the chaos of the noise, and I'm like least comfortable in the stillness. And so when I'm like have a void I need to fill, personally, professionally, I find I can climb out of it most easily by throwing myself into like a group environment, and that's why the last few years have been hard for me. So bringing people back together and being with friends and family and encouraging that conversation and the creativity that comes out of that conversation by bringing people together gets me out of that.
It's beautiful. It's a great answer. That's what we're doing. We're building a community here in Miami, and I find the same hope and direction through people around me. Brad?
Just not to take credit for the ideas, I'll say, read a book. It's called Becoming a King by Morgan Schneider. And at first, a friend sent it to me, and the title really rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, God, the last thing on earth I need is to become a king. I'm dealing with arrogance. I'm dealing with I got big problems right now, And he reframes this idea in the beginning, and it's like your kingdom is just simply the things that you have say over. And whether that's, the best example is his daughter. He's like, it's the couple of square feet around her bed. Like, that's it. And it's kind of a mess. I got to go in there and help her, like, hey, pick your socks up. And, like her domain is she's learning to deal with this little tiny space. And so whatever this domain is learn to, to be a good king. And what happens when people come into power, and you can cite all the examples, especially over the last several years, is their soul and the people around them suffer as a result of their success, right? For all the temptations and everything that winds up happening. And this book and the ideas in it, again, that I don't want to take credit for, really taught me to like soul size my kingdom. It was like my kingdom, if you will, the things that I have domain over, that what I say, relatively speaking, God willing, happens, was larger than I could carry, like larger than I was fit, to rule. And so I've just been focused on just like soul sizing, like excavating, like don't build, like stop building, whether it's other businesses I'm involved in, or just stop for a minute, because you're going to die at, it could be arrogant to think it couldn't happen to me. It's going to happen to somebody tomorrow, and just arrange my day, arrange my time in a way that by design, like use the design skills that I have to design a thing, to design my time, to soul size my kingdom, right? And just focus on that. And I don't have to have 20,000 people that I'm leading. If I just do a good job with my wife, God, I'll be stoked.
Me too. No, I was impatient with my wife the other night in front of DC, and it haunted me. Like, how much time do we have to do anything but love? It's ridiculous. But I think the key is to be crazy fast to apologize and forgive. When I was little, I watched Speedy Gonzalez. And I want to be Speedy Gonzalez when it comes to saying, I'm sorry and I forgive you. But as far as what I do, when I'm in a situation, that's actually first, I just take a checkup. I'm like, wait a minute, what do I need to apologize for? What do I need to take responsibility for? And like, if you were in my head, if I'm cruising down the river, I'm usually saying, help me. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Thank you. Please help me. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry again. So that's just what I do. I talk to God. But then I like to also listen to God. So being still is everything for me. And my goal is just to be in the moment. Because someone said you can't seize a moment you're not in. And so I'm always like, what percentage of the moment am I in right now?
Yes.
And by being still, I realize how absent I often am.
Yes.
A little in the past, a little in the future. So who's here now? Yeah. And one of my best friends is a top tennis doubles players in the world. These guys are amazing, and they're so present. Because when they get with the net, it's like it's so fast. They're constantly training their mind to be present. It's a constant meditation. So this morning I stretched. Last night I would just float in the ocean. And so big nature helps me a lot, especially if there's a little mud on my head and my heart. To go in the ocean and float, swim some laps, but not to get a time. A lot of times I'll want to dive down and swim like I'm 5. Look at the speckles in the water and, oh, look, there's a rock. Let me get that bad boy. If there was a frog in there, I'd follow him. So training my mind to be in the moment, also just by checking in right now, like I'm very aware of this. I love the AC system because it's an anchor for my mind that can often, as a creative person, drift. I can end up, it's not like where I'm going is bad, but even if I'm building some castle in the future, then all of a sudden that same mind wants to create fear about, well, what happens if you don't get to that castle? So I just try to be in the now because that's where God lives. That's where there's a free concert 24/7 and there's no cost but to be there. And so I do want to say this. I do wonder sometimes, I'm like, why isn't some artist having taken some of the greatest songs of all time? And one of my favorite, not only as a child, but when I go visit my daughters at school, when they were really little, they dress up in little skirts. And all of a sudden they start singing this song. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Now, I have a terrible voice, so I'm not gonna do that to you. But I was like, why hasn't an artist sang that song? And last night, Doe, you sang that song. And I want to ask you a favor.
Yes.
Because I can't sing it, and I'll get it started. But can you do me a favor? Because I think everybody here has one thing in common. We want to let our light shine. That is the divine design. Just to let our light shine. The battle's on. I'm just kidding. So, if we can, Doe, please.
Yes.
Bless us.
Let's go.
Please. Please. No, because, come on. So, I'll start it. Just to
You don't
lower
have
the bar.
to. You don't
I'm
have
gonna
to. You
lower the
could let
bar.
her start it.
Someone should turn my mic
This
off.
little...
Light of mine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Help me. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Woo!
Little better. She does everything I've taught her. Very well done.
Well, I must say, out of the 5 discussions we've had so far at VOUS Basel, this is probably going down as my favorite. Can we thank our guests, Sean Wolfington, Brad Christian, Chelsea Hirschhorn. Wonderful, wonderful conversation. Thank you guys all so much for taking the time to be here, for blessing us with your wisdom and your insight. And we bless all of you guys as you go back into your endeavors and the spaces that you're going to be in, reminding you that there is a divine design in your work and in your makeup of who you are. I'm going to pray. We've got a beautiful night planned, 8 p.m. tonight. This place is going to be packed out. And so if you want to join us, be here early. My friend Aiden King, I don't know if he's in the room right now, but he is... He's never ever shown his own original music personally. It's not worship music tonight. He's doing a showcase here tonight, about 4 songs. I said it this way. I think it's some of my favorite music I've heard in the last 3 or 4 years. I've been playing it left and right. It's a huge honor for me that he's going to be doing that. And then we're talking tonight on the art of rest. Dr. Darius Daniels, Andy Minyo's in that conversation. My dear friend Jason Kennedy, Don Shree and I will be hosting that conversation. Going to be talking a lot about these things like stillness and different types of practices for your soul. I think it's going to be a beneficial and helpful conversation. But before we get to that, let's just take a time for a moment if we can. Let's just pray and then we'll dismiss. Lord, we thank you so much for just this wonderful time together. Lord, I thank you for our friends Sean, Brad, and Chelsea. Lord, we bless them. Lord, we're grateful for their life and their leadership. We pray, God, as they leave here today, God, that they would walk out of here with new clarity and, Lord, just even fulfillment, Lord, in their time being with us. Lord, we thank you, God, that as we're talking about direction today, Lord, we know you are the one who sees the end from the beginning. So, Lord, we believe that you are guiding us. We believe that our steps are ordered by you. Help us to be like what Sean's talking about, surrendering to the river and following the flow of the Spirit. God, help us, Lord, to have a vision and a mission for our lives. Lord, give us the capacity to put the right people to collaborate around us. But God, give us the inner strength, Lord, when we come up against a mountain or an obstacle, not to give up, not to quit, but to go back to you that we might find the strength to continue the journey. We love you, Lord. We're thankful, God, that you are the great architect. You're the great designer. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for being with us. We bless you. And in Jesus' name, everybody said, amen. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.